My name's Tim Tyson. I'm better known locally as the guy that wrote that stupid story in the Winston-Salem paper that said that Leroy Ledford had left the Republican Party. He has not, and quite emphatically will not. But since I make up things about Mr. Ledford, my next story about Mr. Ledford, which is not true also, is that let's just say I predict that the Republican Party is going to run Leroy Ledford for the United States Senate. I'm giving him the nomination because it appears that Speaker Tillis and Speaker Pro Tem Berger are thought to be no longer viable candidates because of their association with the North Carolina General Assembly. I assume that Mr. Ledford has no direct and recent association with them. Now, polls suggest that Mr. Ledford has 100% backing from his own immediate family. This is not necessarily true of the other candidates that have been mentioned, nor Governor McCrory. There's a rumor that their mothers, many of them, are actually reconsidering their endorsements. I wanted to give you greetings from Reverend William J. Barber II, the state president of the North Carolina NAACP. He keeps saying he's speaking in Dare County. I said, you can call it Dare County if you want to. You're going to the beach. But I'm glad I'm here. It's a great place. I've got family here. Reverend Larry Green is the father of Allison Green, who married my favorite nephew. Allison is brilliant and beautiful, weighs about 110 pounds. I wouldn't fight her with an axe, and I'm not kidding. You can spend the whole day with her, and she'll never tell you she has a PhD from Yale University. She will tell you within a minute and a half that she is from Mitchell County, North Carolina. However, I'm also very grateful for my father, Reverend Vernon Tyson, who drove me up the mountain. I drove him up the wall, but that's been a while. We get along real good now. Reverend McCrory's, Governor McCrory, Lord have mercy, no. I'm not sure he went to Sunday school, let alone to seminary. But Governor McCrory, his polls have dropped 26 points since the Moral Monday protests began. General Assembly's polls, favorable ratings, my research indicates that they are less popular than mice or non-poisonous snakes. They're more popular than cockroaches or personal itching. Ironically, the Moral Monday protesters, our polls are what Governor McCrory's polls were when he first came into office, which is to say unbeatable, etc. I don't know if 100,000 people can run for governor together, like collectively, but apparently we're unbeatable. We're right where McCrory was until he started letting Art Pope drive the bus. Now I have no idea why Governor McCrory got himself in all this trouble, unless maybe it was cutting the thousands of teaching jobs, or increasing class size, or ending due process for teachers, or making us soon to be 50th in teacher pay. Phil Berger, when presented with a question that included a litany of all the things they've done and not done, said, and I quote, "The schools are still open." Wow. Thanks. Way to go. Could have been the earned income tax credit. They cut the earned income tax credit for 900,000 North Carolina families. That is, that raised, this is a conservative anti-poverty program, and it only helps working people who are working. And Go figure. Ronald Reagan loved it. Anyway, 64,000 of those people who were cut off of that are military families. Or maybe it was slashing the unemployment benefits when extending them till January wouldn't have cost us the state a dime. Could have been not accepting that federal money for Medicaid for 500,000 North Carolinians, which is going to cost us $1 billion. You know, because people get deathly ill. They don't get health care, so they don't get their high blood pressure taken care of, so they have a stroke or a heart attack that's preventable, and then they end up in the ER. We don't. Maybe they're going to pass another law that we have to just stack them up like firewood on the curb, but actually we treat them, and it's much more expensive to treat a stroke or a heart attack than it would have been a little maintenance on the high blood pressure. So it's actually it's not even by, even if you're trying to cut back on expenses and folks, I understand, we all can't do everything, but, the impossibilities are not always endless, but even under those terms, it's a huge waste of money. $1 billion sounds like a lot of money to me, frankly. I don't know why, having seen that these people would be so interested in decreasing voter turnout. Do you? I just can't understand it. It's just a mystery. And that's the thing, when they start talking, voter ID is nonsense. That's only one thing in the law. Why they pull that out to call it that, I guess you might know. Because to most people, well, that sounds not that crazy, and, Sudafed, airplanes, blah, 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 right? Which, of course, buying Sudafed is not a constitutional right, incidentally, but there's several other things in there, and every single one of them will bring down turnout a bit, right? Any obstacle you put will lower turnout a bit. That's just how we don't have to take away the voting rights of any individual person to lower turnout significantly, and when less people vote, people who are really unpopular have a chance to win. That's the only way they can stay in office, and it's wrong. Much of it is actually truly unconstitutional, and the NAACP is suing them. We are going to win. We'd really like it if you join the NAACP. You can go online and do so. The NAACP is not a black organization. It's a justice organization. At our founding, the majority of the people at our founding were white, what we call white. It's all just a bunch of hokum anyway. But as Reverend Barber's fond of saying, he's white, he's Tuscarora, he's African American. We're all blood kin. That's just one of our little secrets, isn't it? But I rather like it. Now, I wanted to draw your attention to, I don't usually read the American Conservative. I don't, I admit it. But I did this past week. You've got to see it, the August issue of the American Conservative, which is a magazine founded by Pat Buchanan. If you remember him, it notes that how unpopular the governor of North Carolina and the General Assembly have become, and says this fall from grace was inevitable given their policy choices that hurt working class families, combined with their inability to defend those policies without relying on stale conservative rhetoric, quote unquote. That's the right wing talking about our General Assembly. I didn't say it. They did. They recommended that the North Carolina Republican Party leadership recalibrate policy and rhetoric to focus on the needs of working people. I'm here because of my mama. My mama worked for 40 years in the North Carolina public schools, 40 years in the 4th grade. That's longer than McCrory spent there. And you know, my great granddaddy was a preacher, and my great granddaddy and my great granddaddy and my granddaddy and my daddy and his 5 brothers. They're all Methodist ministers in eastern North Carolina. And so the bishop would move. Moving was part of our life. You know, the bishop would move you, and you'd have to move. And I would go. I don't know why I ended up doing this every time, but time and again I went with Mama, and we'd drive down to school with her in her station wagon, and we'd fill it up with her teaching stuff. You know, she wasn't stealing the school stuff. This was her stuff that she bought for her students. And it would take 3 station wagon loads because, you know, out of that big money she was nailing down teaching the 4th grade, she spent a good bit of it every year supplying people with materials, you know, making sure the kids had what they needed. And she's very serious about her profession. And I feel madder than hell that they're disrespecting teachers. My mother's retired now. She's still tutoring kids in math on the side, but I just think it's just disgraceful the way they're treating our teachers who mean so much to us and our families. I got to give you this. This is another little quote from the American Conservative article, same one from August 2013. Given the state's bipartisan tradition of striking a balance between economic growth and maintaining a social safety net, North Carolina is simply not suited for straight libertarian governance. Education is the prime example. The right to a K-12 education is enshrined in the state constitution, and public education is broadly seen as a public good. They've never even been to North Carolina. This guy's the governor. I'm not sure he's been to North Carolina. Did they really think they could dismantle public education here, where it's been a staple of our political culture and our civic culture for a long time? And you know, when you've got a small tax base, like my people are from down east, it's a lot like being from out west, because you're a long way from Raleigh. You read the paper, you can tell they've forgotten you exist, and you don't know whether you want to remind them or not, you know? But in these counties, the tax base is not there. When the budget act falls, it hits. There's nothing to pad it, right? So it's not like, cutting Wake County's budget or Durham County's budget or Mecklenburg County's budget is bad. They don't need cutting, they need increasing. But counties outside the area that economic development by the state has ever occurred, it hurts a lot worse, and you know that. And your neighbors lose their jobs, right? And children you know are being hurt by this. It's not an abstraction in any way. It's not a number on some sheet. It's families that you know and love. And you know, we've got to stand together and fight for each other. That's the thing that moves me so much about seeing you here in this way. This is straight up grassroots democracy. I love this. It makes my heart sing. This movement, you know, when Reverend Barb and I started working together 7 years ago, it wasn't too hard to find me in the crowd, if you get my drift. But something's happening here. And people think, you know, that somehow the ship is going down. People are emailing, I don't know about you, but people email me from all over the country, my family and friends, they're saying, oh, you must be terribly sad about what's happening in North Carolina. The notion is the ship is going down. Well, you know, the ship has already gone down. That old ship, right? We're on a new ship now. We're on a new ship now. It ain't no slave ship. Oh no. You know, it's a fellowship. It's about recognizing that we're all human beings and that a person is not a thing and cannot be dispensed in that way. It's a spiritual movement as much as it is a political movement. It's not a partisan movement. It's not about Republican and Democrat or liberal and conservative. It's about love. And it's about a social ethos that is rooted in love. That says, a human being is not just a hunk of roast beef. It's a person with a soul. It's a person who matters. It's God's child. And we're not going to pretend anymore that this is not God's child that they're doing this to. Because it is. And that's what matters. And we don't have to agree on everything. We've got people in terms of faith things. Moral Monday has people who are Christian, Jewish, agnostic, atheist, wondering, scratching their head, people who are wrestling with faith, people who hadn't thought about it too much, but I've seen what's happening to them, and we've got agnostics who've got the Holy Ghost, and I'm not kidding. I've seen it happen, because they're realizing that there's a connection between us, and that we are one. And that we're under a loving God. And they don't know exactly what it means, but they can feel it running through their hands when we hold hands, and sing and say what needs saying. What they can feel it. And they understand that this is beyond politics. It requires politics, and that's because you can't. Love is something, not just something you feel. Love is something you do. I like to think of us, and a coalition's the only way to do it. Y'all know, with Citizens United, and actually just the way American politics has been going for decades and decades now, money, money, money. It's the rule of money, right? But the one thing they cannot buy is they cannot buy your support. They cannot buy your vote. They cannot buy your sacred right to cast that ballot. And we're not for sale. And we know that what we have to do is we have to do like Grandmom and them did, which is we take the odds and ends of our necessity, the scraps of what we've got. We take what we've got and we get together and we spread it out and we cut it up and everybody's making their patches, right? And we come together and it's fun. It's hard work, but it's fun. And we're glad to be together. And we're making something beautiful. We love Reverend Barber. We love to hear him speak. But this is not about somebody making a beautiful speech. It's about all of us making a beautiful quilt. And we don't wait. That's coalition politics. You don't have to agree on everything. You just have to understand that you have a common understanding, a common commitment to basic human rights and basic common decency. The fine points come out in the wash. We don't have. It's just a matter of saying there is some stuff we will not put up with, not in our name. And so we come together and we all bring our patches, and it's a little bit of corduroy, and it's a little bit of polyester, and it's a little bit of denim, and it's a little bit of calico, and it may seem kind of crazy, but it works and it's lovely. And we don't wait. You don't do it in the middle of the night when you're cold, right? You do it steady on, and we keep stitching it together. And so when the time comes, we've already got each other. We can turn to each other instead of on each other. And we can make this state a great place for our children to grow up. I can't resist giving you one more little quote from the American Conservative this month. Quote unquote, their words. They ignored, speaking of the General Assembly supermajority and the governor, they ignored the deeper problem. Many communities are still grappling with the housing bust and the departure of manufacturing. North Carolina's unemployment is largely structural. There are simply no jobs to be had. Structural, that means things have got to change. You know, what are people for? You know, we're not just part of the labor pool. And we got stuff that needs doing. We just have to get some people paid to do it, you know, and treated decently. And we can do that. I believe we can figure that out. I don't believe they said freeze teacher pay. I don't believe. What about these 24-year-olds, campaign aides, who, as a reward for knowing the governor all their lives, are making almost $90,000 a year? They just got a $20,000 raise. That's just wiping their feet on the teachers. You know, it's like running out there tossing them a plate of cookies. It's just another way to say, drop dead, you don't matter. You know? But that won't stand. As Reverend Barber says, what you've done will not stand the test of time, the scrutiny of the Constitution, or the power of the people. You know, we're thinking a lot about Dr. King here with the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington coming up, and there'll be stuff on TV all week about him, and I've been pondering him a lot, and particularly given what's going on among us. And what is the connection? What is the connection? I think it's really important that we understand who Dr. King was and what he did. I mean, there wasn't an office somewhere where you could call and go, they'd say, Civil Rights Movement, may I help you? No. He had no command structure. Okay? It was the people, like the people here before me, like the people all around you. That's who did it. Thousands and thousands of local people in their own communities organizing are what made the movement move. We've always got somebody who can give a speech. I'm not dismissing Dr. King's contribution, but the thing that made it move was the labors of thousands and thousands of people whose names we may not know except for the ones that we carry in our own hearts. But that's who made the movement, and and that's who lifted Dr. King up among the rulers of the earth, who made him a kind of another founding father, who transformed the meaning of this nation, who took the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and made them something more than meaningless scraps of paper, but instead let them speak to the ages about human freedom and the dignity of human personality and the equality of all God's children under law. And preserve for us a sacred expression of democracy, which is nonviolent direct action. I want to say something about that, because people said, well, what's the point of getting arrested? Well, in practical terms, the point of getting arrested is it got the media's attention, okay? So that people all over the country are talking about this. And but why? What is beneath that? It's a witness. It's a moral witness. It says this is so objectionable to me that I violate the law. And you know, it's not about breaking the law. It's about honoring the law. It's about recognizing that the law is sacred. You violate, but you don't run. You don't try to get out of it. You're acknowledging the law actually, and it makes people You know, what happens at that point in human history, we have to understand, is that people, you know, when the government starts violating things so deep that it's what you really care about, that you cannot abide by this, people start running guns. That's what people do. We're kind of an interesting species that way. We're pretty good at that. That's what normally happens on the planet. When people cannot stand what you're doing, they start fighting. And then trouble commences. I don't have to tell people here what can happen under a situation like that. But nonviolent direct action is a way to express that without going to war. While saying, I'm not saying I have all the answers, and I'm not saying I have a right to step on you. You know, while honoring your adversaries. Because I have one closing word to say, and this is to people to our adversaries, to people who disagree. Because there are people who earnestly disagree. But we know that what's happening is a catastrophe if we let it go forward. And I want to say to them, we are not your enemies. We are not your enemies. Your children will bless us. They will learn about Moral Monday in strong, vibrant public schools that will be here after we are long gone as an expression of love for people we'll never meet. God bless you.